Hello, everyone. My name is Cole, and today we're streaming another episode of Aquarium Online Academy. Today I'm here at the Aquarium of the Pacific in Long Beach, California. I hope you're doing well today. So, we are going to learn a whole bunch about animals and the different sizes they have today. So, to do that, I think we actually need to learn how to be a scientist. And to do that, scientists like to do two things. So, first thing they like to do is one, like to notice things. Do you like to notice things? I sure do. I notice things all day long. And that makes me curious about the world around us. The other thing scientists like to do is they like to ask questions. Have you ever asked a question before? Yeah, I ask questions a whole bunch too. We're both very curious people. Okay, so I actually want you to practice your noticing skills and your question skills with me today. So, my friend Jeanette, who's behind the camera, she's actually going to put a line down below, and you can actually, with the help of an adult, text us at 562-286-1838. Again, that's 562-286-1838. And you can actually text in your questions or your things that you've noticed to us, and we can actually answer them live. And if you actually can't maybe do that right now, or maybe you're watching another date, today's date is November 4th, or sorry, December 4th, 2025. So if you're watching this at another date, you can actually email us down below at live@lbaop.org. And one of our staff members will get back to you, even though it's a later time. Okay, friends, so I think we have to warm up our scientist brains before we go crazy and talk all about the really cool different animals and the different sizes they come in. So let's go ahead and practice those two things I was talking about. The first one being noticing, and the second asking questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to step off screen for just a moment, and we're going to practice those skills on our blue cavern habitat. So there's actually a whole bunch of really cool live streams that go 24 hours a day here at the aquarium that you can go check out. So those are through a website called exploredor.org, and that's actually down right there. So I'm going to go ahead and step off. You can check out this live stream or many others anytime you like. You can even see things like elephants in Africa or grizzly bears up in Alaska. So I'm going to go ahead and step off screen, and let's go ahead and take some time and notice this habitat and wonder about it too, like maybe some questions. So maybe, what do you notice here? I notice a lot of different colors. I also see a lot of different types of fishes. Do you see a lot of different fishes? Do these fishes come in different sizes? I wonder what that big fish is that's just swimming by us. That tail is massive. I think we're actually going to get to learn all about that fish later today. Ooh, that fish in the distance looks really cool. It has black and orange. And this kelp seems to be growing upwards. Yeah, very good job, scientists. So as you can see, we have a whole bunch of different types of animals living in this animal home called a habitat. So this is a kelp forest, and we're going to learn all about different types of animals. There we go. Habitat. Can you spell habitat with me? Habitat. Good job. Habitat. So we're going to learn all about a bunch of different animals from habitats all around the world and how they kind of live in those habitats depending on their size. Okay, so I think it's time we actually check out our first animal. So, my friend Jeanette, why don't you go ahead and take us to our first animal? I wonder what it could be. Will it be big or will it be small? I think we're going to have to use our scientist brains to figure it out when we get a good view of it. Yeah, because some things are really big. Like, what's the biggest animal you've ever seen? Okay, check this out. So, here, what is that? Do you know what that is? It Is it a fish sticking his fin out of the water? Maybe. I don't see the bones popping out, little spines of the fish. Could it be a whale? Yeah, that's right. That is a blue whale. Isn't that incredible? So that is just the little tiny piece of the head of the blue whale sticking out. But how big do you think that head is? Do you think it's the size of a fork? No, that can't be the size of a fork. What about the size of your dog? Oh no, definitely not. My dog is a lot bigger than that. So my friends, a blue whale, get ready for this. Can be anywhere from 75 to 100 feet long. The biggest one that's ever lived that we have encountered is actually 108 feet long. That is the biggest animal, to our knowledge, that has ever, ever, ever lived. And we're living in the same time as it today. So let's go ahead and take another look to kind of see what this animal looks like. Because this animal, you don't see it flying around the sky, do you? No. It's an ocean animal, right? So it's going to be swimming around. It's going to kind of come up to the surface and say hello. So let's see if we can't catch this one saying hello. There we go. Okay, so we can see that this is the little back of the blue whale. Do you see this little tiny dorsal fin right here? Yeah, so that's actually one of the ways scientists keep track of who each whale is. We can actually take a look at that little fin on their back and also their big tail on the rear called the caudal fin, or the flukes. And we can actually figure out which whale is which when we go visit them and drive our boats up in the ocean to say hello. Yeah, okay. There's also something else really cool about whales. So, what do you think a whale eats? Do you think a whale is going to eat a fish? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, it's a pretty big mouth, right? It's 100-foot long. But what about something smaller? Do you think the biggest animal in the world eats something pretty big or pretty small? It's actually pretty darn small. So they actually eat something called krill. So check this out, friends. So this is called krill. It's a little tiny shrimp. And a blue whale actually eats up to 30 million of these a day. Isn't that wild how many they eat? So to put that in perspective, friends, have you ever eaten a really big juicy hamburger before? Yeah, I like going to McDonald's. And when I go to McDonald's, I like getting the Big Mac. And the Big Mac, that's a pretty big meal. I can only eat one of those. So get this, my friends. In terms of the number of calories that the blue whale could eat in just these alone every single day is the equivalent to 50,000 McDonald's Big Mac hamburgers. That many. Isn't that incredible? They could eat so much food. But that also makes me wonder, how do they eat that food? They don't really have teeth, do they? Do they have teeth, or do they have something a bit more like my beard? So I'm going to go ahead and get a biofact, which is actually a special thing that allows us to learn about our natural world around us. So check this out, friends. I'm going to show you on our camera up here first. So this is a whale's baleen. So baleen is almost kind of like a hairy plate. Can you see the little hairs? Go do a nice soft 2-finger touch with the back of my hand. You can see the nice soft hairs. Almost kind of feels like a coconut. The whale will pretty much take a really big bite of water, go, ow! And in that water will have like probably quite a few krill, right? In the thousands. And what it'll do is it'll actually use its tongue to, once it closes its mouth, push that water and the krill towards its baleen, which is almost to be able to push the water through and catch them with the little tiny fuzzy. And the water gets all it kind of licks its beard or its little baleen inside of its mouth, right? It's able to eat all of that krill. Isn't that incredible? So there's a really cool word I like to use when talking about these animal superpowers. They're called adaptations. Can you say the word adaptation? Adaptation, very good. So an adaptation is just kind of like a special animal superpower or a trait that allows them to live in their habitat or their home. So do you think this helps the whale eat its food and live in its home? Yeah, definitely. So that is a good example of an animal adaptation. Okay, so there's another animal that we're pretty familiar with. Ooh, my friends, we have a question from our audience. So our questions are blue whales endangered? So, yes, they are currently listed as endangered, and they're protected under something called the Marine Mammal Protection Act. And what that act does, it was signed in 1962. It gives whales, mammals such as seals, sea lions, and dolphins, special protections include being prevented, like they're not allowed to be hunted, they're not allowed to be touched, they're not allowed to be harassed, or you're not even allowed to approach them within too close of a distance. So it really, really helps these animals, and has really helped the population numbers kind of climb back up a little bit since the 1970s. So it's a really, really, really important law that helps us save marine mammals around our country. Okay, excellent. So I think that we should go on to our next animal. Now, sometimes I get confused because sometimes, like my favorite animal, depends on the day, are sharks. And there's this one shark that it's called a whale shark. Have you ever heard of a whale shark before? So a whale shark, is it a whale or is it a shark? There we go. Look at this, friends. So we have our whale shark right here. Now, do you think this is more of a whale or do you think it is more of a shark? Do you think it's the same size as a whale? Or do you think this is kind of fish-sized? Well, get this, my friends. So, when I was a kid, I took the school bus to school. It's one of my favorite things. Got on the school bus at the end of the day and went home, And I was always like, wow, this is such a big vehicle. Get this, my friends. A whale shark is about the same size as a school bus. So if you went to a school on a school bus today, or maybe in the past, that is like riding in a whale shark. It's about 30 to 40 feet long and can weigh up to 40 tons. Now, Cole, what is a ton? So a ton is just about 2,000 pounds, right? So that's about the weight of a small car. So a whale shark is about the size of 40 cars. So imagine going to a pretty filled parking lot and seeing a lot of vehicles. That's about how much it weighs in terms of weight. Pretty incredible. The blue whale that we were just talking about is 100 to 150 tons. Pretty crazy, right? Okay, so look at that mouth right there. Does everyone see that mouth? There we go. Okay, I think we should have it open up just a little bit more. Oh, there we go, my friend. So this is why the whale shark is actually called a whale shark. It acts kind of like a whale. So this animal is a shark, identifiably, but it actually feeds just like a whale. So it's going to be eating that same krill as we were talking about earlier. And it's going to have a really special shark jaw to be able to do that. Now, as I said, pretty big animal. How big do you think that jaw really is? Do you think it's the size of a house? Maybe. Size of a small door? Maybe a car door? Yeah, let's check it out. I have a biofact where we can look at it together. Okay, friends, check this out. So this is my whale shark jaw is a little bit fuzzy today. Okay, so check this out, friends. So Sorry, this is the green screen kind of being a little funky sometimes. So the whale shark jaw is pretty large. As I said, it's about the size of maybe a small car door. So what's really special about it, though, is it has special teeth. Maybe I could take this over to our document camera, and we could get a better look at the special teeth on there. Okay. Here we go, friends. Let's take a look at these special teeth. So this is the back of the whale shark jaw. So go ahead and zoom in a little bit more. There we go. So these are actually very special shark teeth. Can you see them right here? They're little tiny bumps, and they're really, really tiny. And what they're going to do is it's actually going to allow the whale shark to filter feed really small animals, just like the blue whale, actually. So it's pretty incredible. Let's go ahead and head back over to the studio. It's pretty incredible to see how such big animals feed on such tiny, 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 tiny things, right? Well, my friends, we've seen some pretty big animals so far today. I think maybe we'll go to a smaller animal next. But before that, we have another really cool question from our audience. So, do we have whale sharks at the Aquarium of the Pacific? So the answer to that is no, we do not. There's only a couple aquariums around the world that have large enough exhibits. There we go. We can see a nice large picture of a whale shark. I'm going to go ahead and step off screen. You can see how truly large these animals are. There is not very many aquariums in the world that are big enough to actually hold a whale shark. So our largest exhibit here at the Aquarium of the Pacific is our tropical exhibit. It's around 300,000 gallons. But the Voyager exhibit at Georgia Aquarium is about 5 to 6 million gallons, and they actually have a couple whale sharks in that exhibit there. There's also a couple aquariums in Japan that have big enough exhibits to be able to hold whale sharks. Okay, excellent. So, very good with the questions, everyone. So again, if you do want to send in a question or an observation, a thing that you've noticed, feel free at any time to go down below to our number at 562-286-1838. Keep on sending in the amazing questions, scientists. I appreciate it. Okay, so I think we should shrink down tiny, 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 to see some smaller animals. Okay. So why don't we go ahead and check out a really small animal? There we go. Perfect. So we have our seahorse. Oh, I love seahorses. So, scientists, do you think it's this big? No. How big do you think a seahorse is? Is it the size of a clownfish? Is it the size of a turtle? No. My friend, so it's actually only about 2 inches big when it's fully grown. And actually, you know what that's kind of a similar size to? Have you ever played with a Hot Wheel before? Yeah, I have. I loved playing with Hot Wheels when I was growing up. Those are about 2 to 3 inches long. So that is actually a pretty similar size to a seahorse. Yeah, so why don't we go ahead and look for some special animal adaptations on this seahorse? Can you see any, scientists? Okay, step off screen for just a moment here. Let's think together. What are some special animal adaptations you see? I see a couple, because, you know, this animal, is it a fish? Yeah, it has some common traits that are going to make it a fish. And if you tune in at our live stream at 3 p.m. today, you can actually learn from my friend Jeanette about our class, Fantastic Fishes, about the specific things that make a fish a fish. But let's go ahead and explore what this animal's adaptations are. Jeanette will teach you about that later. Okay, so one of the things that I see some things like, do you see that up there? Do you see that little tiny cover? So that cover is called an operculum, and it kind of covers up their gills. So fish do not have lungs, right? We have lungs. Everyone take a nice deep breath in, and a nice deep breath out. So we breathe oxygen inside of our lungs, right? With air. So fish breathe the oxygen inside of the water using their gills. So this animal has gills instead. I also see some nice little fins. Maybe this fin's going to help it kind of move around in a semi-vertical position, right? Do you see this little tiny snout right here? Yeah, that's weird. Does that remind you of any other animals? Maybe something that's not a fish? Does it remind you of a dog? Yeah, so their snout's kind of long and tube-like, almost like a dog, right? Yeah, so they're going to actually use that specially modified mouth to be able to kind of like suck things up, almost like a straw. And it'll kind of catch little tiny things, which we'll talk about some smaller things after this. But we actually had another question from one of our viewers. We have, do we have any sharks at the Aquarium of the Pacific? Oh yes, my friend, we have so many sharks here. So some of the wonderful sharks that we have zebra sharks, which are endangered species that we're actually trying to help protect and raise back up into the wild. I love our black-tipped reef sharks. We have bamboo sharks that you can touch. Got some really cool leopard sharks. And a couple other really amazing ones, too. So it's really cool. You gotta definitely come down to the Aquarium of the Pacific sometime. In our touch pools, you can actually touch bamboo sharks and an epaulet shark. And some really cool rays as well. Okay, so I think it's time that we head over to our... Ooh, actually, I think there's one more adaptation I want to see with the sea star. Sorry, with the sea star. Seahorse. Excuse me. Okay, so let's see. Can you see this seahorse doing something special with its body? Do you see its tail wrapped around something? Does that remind you of any other animals? Did you say a monkey? That's right. It does kind of remind me of a monkey. So do you see how it's kind of using its tail to kind of wrap up over the little piece of coral right here? There we go. It's kind of tricky to point sometimes. So it's going to kind of use that to hold on to things. I've even seen some videos of them actually holding on to other seahorses. So that's a really cool adaptation, so they can kind of stay in one place. It maybe not be the strongest. So, if the current comes by, it's probably going to want to hold on to something, like hugging a tree during a storm. Oh, it's windy. Oh, no, there's currents. Okay, so I think we should go even smaller. Okay, are you ready, my friends? Let's go even smaller. So this is going to be, it's not going to be a fish. It's not going to be a mammal. It's going to be something a little bit different. It's going to be an invertebrate, an animal who has no bones. Okay, so what do you think could it be? Could it be a snail? Could it be a crab? Okay, let's go ahead and find out. Wow, look at that little tiny animal. Do you have any idea what that is? Do you have any idea how big it is? Can you show me with your hands how big it is? Do you think, is it this big? I've seen some like sea hares like that big. Do you think it's this big? This big? This big? No! Okay, so my friends, this animal is ultra tiny. This is called a pajama squid. And it's called a pajama squid because it has those really nice stripes. Do you see these nice little stripes right here? Yeah, it has those stripes. It's kind of like old-fashioned pajamas. So let's go ahead and see another photo where we're going to kind of be able to compare the size of it. Scientists love to compare things so that we can get a better understanding of our natural world around us, right? Yeah, so that's the whole entire idea behind noticing things. Making observations. Good job, my friends. Oh my goodness! Look how tiny that pajama squid is! Oh wow, it is absolutely tiny. So that is a dime right there, and it is just as small as a little tiny piece of the dime. It's actually only about a millimeter or two. It's very, 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 very tiny, little tiny animal. It's weird, like, that one's probably going to stay pretty close to that size. That animal lives about 1 to 2 years. It's not going to get too much bigger. But, like, do squid get bigger than that? Because, like, they're all kind of like cousins, all the squids, right? They're all species that are kind of related to each other. But how big do you think the biggest squid of all time is? Do you think it's a foot long? Do you think it's as long as my wingspan, which is about 6 feet? That'd be a pretty big squid. Now, my friends, there is this one really big squid. It's the largest species of squid that we're currently aware of. It's called the colossal squid. And it is 43 feet long. That's as big as our whale shark and even some whales. So it's pretty incredible to see how like animals that are pretty closely related to one another, they can be drastically different sizes, right? Okay, so I think we can even go smaller than this. I mean, like, have you ever seen anything smaller than that? That's smaller than a ladybug. Like, how could we get any smaller than that? Okay, let's go ahead and see. Whoa! Where are we, everyone? Are we in outer space? No, we're not in outer space. We're in the deep, dark ocean. So, right here, I actually have some plankton. Now, what is a plankton? So, a plankton really is just any animal that kind of drifts with the current in the water. So, kind of imagine a sea jelly kind of drifting around. Ooh, I'm kind of drifting with the current right now. So, kind of imagine a sea jelly drifting around. It doesn't really have the ability to swim like one of the fishes that we just explored, right? So any animal that just drifts with the current is technically a plankton. So maybe if a really big fish started off tiny, it would actually start as a plankton. Or in this case, we have some that are going to stay tiny, tiny, tiny. And they're always going to be tiny. This is actually kind of another animal we looked at today. Do you remember we're learning a bit about our brine shrimp, our krill? Yeah, we have our krill right here. These are plankton as well. They don't really have control because they're pretty small, and the size of the ocean and the current, the thing that moves the water around the ocean, is pretty strong in comparison, right? So, these little tiny animals, they kind of just drift around, and it's kind of crazy that something this small could be eaten by a blue whale, We have so many different cool sizes of amazing animals that are so extreme, right? So, I think we have time for one more cool animal. So let's go ahead and check out a very specific plankton. May I even say the plankton? Okay, are you ready, my friends? Are you ready to see the plankton? Can you imagine who the plankton is? Have you seen plankton in any other places before? Maybe an animated show that you love? Ooh, I think I know of one. Okay, let's go ahead and check it out. Oh my goodness. That is plankton from SpongeBob, everyone. Okay, so this is a type of animal called a copiopod. Can you say copiopod? Good job, friends. So, a copiopod is really just a little tiny plankton. And the person who drew SpongeBob, the animator that made the show, actually is also a biologist. So, he kind of knew what he was talking about. And when he drew plankton from SpongeBob, you actually notice like these are plankton's antennae. Those little tiny little arms right there. Little tiny legs down underneath. You see the two legs? Yeah. And do you see a kind of like a little clump up towards the middle? Like right there? Yeah. That's kind of like plankton's eye. Yeah, so as you can see, like, this is pretty much plankton. He's a copiopod. And he's even so tiny. And my friends, we've gotten so tiny, we wouldn't even be able to see this with our own eye. So we've explored so many different cool types of animals. So why don't we go ahead and go back to our studio? Because I think we have one more question to answer before we head off for the day. Okay. So are seahorses poisonous? So I'm not aware of any seahorses that are poisonous. So I don't think so. So I hope you all had an incredible time learning with us today. We explored a whole bunch of different animals in different sizes. We explored the largest animal that's ever lived, the blue whale, the largest shark currently living today, the whale shark. We saw and kind of shrunk down a good bit down to the dwarf seahorse, and even tinier with the pajama squid. and got even tinier with the plankton. Okay, my friends, I hope you all had a great time learning with me. If we have any school classrooms tuned in right now, please go ahead and it'd be great if you could pop in the number of students you have watching with us today, just so that we could continue to get to know our community and who we serve. Okay, well, I hope everyone had a great time learning with us today at our Aquarium Online Academy. We will be live again today at 3 p.m. That is December 4th. And I hope you all have a great day. Bye, everyone.